Inside the Arena is presented by Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel, Seattle's closest sportsbook.
Welcome to Inside the Arena, your source for everything off the ice, off the court, and outside the field of play. With your hosts, KOMO Sports Director Niko and KOMO Senior Reporter Chris Daniels.
The fans, you can still hear them from Lumen Field.
Setting off another earthquake, huh?
Yeah. Anything going on in the last few days?
No. It's been a really slow time in Seattle sports. We're just trying to find our way through, Chris. You know, I mean, maybe spring training starts soon, you know?
Kraken are playing.
Yeah, Kraken playing. You know, well, we got the Olympic break, you know, but
Yeah, there was something going on this past week. You were right in the middle of it all.
It was amazing. You know, the one thing that was almost anticlimactic, if you can possibly say that about clinching a Super Bowl bid, is that because there was kind of that uncertainty as to whether Puka Nacua was out of bounds on the last play for the Rams. So fans kind of let out the initial cheer, and then they weren't quite sure, and then they let out another cheer instead of like one big roaring moment, like say you had the prior week of Rashid Shaheed's kickoff return. But amazing moment, and as you know, Chris, it's kind of a free-for-all. You're in the mix of it with the players, their families, everybody celebrating. You want to respect the families as they celebrate, but also you want to do some interviews too. And because unless you win it in Santa Clara, there's nothing quite like that moment right after you win to punch your ticket to the Super Bowl. So really special opportunity. And my goodness, it's just going to be a lot of fun to see all the festivities. And of course, Inside the Arena will be live on location in Santa Clara next week.
On Media Row, Abe Lucas, you talked to him on the field. He's part of this show as well.
Yeah, so it was actually before the game.
Oh, before
and what we're
game.
talking about there is, you know, as we like to do on Inside the Arena, it's one thing to break down the X's and O's and break down how many passing yards, blah, blah, blah. But this is in our wheelhouse for this show. You could really look at the foundation of this Super Bowl team as the Russell Wilson trade and the draft picks that came in. They nailed that draft. The 23, they had the extra first round pick of that. They got JSN and Devin Witherspoon. I think those were two hits. And so Abe and I were just kind of talking, he was part of the 22 class, just the idea that, you know, those guys came up together. They're now 4-year players, and 7 of the 8 guys that the Seahawks picked in that draft are starting or major contributors. Even the 7th rounder, Derek Young, plays a huge role on special teams and has even caught a few passes this year. But, you know, you go on down the list. So there's a lot of cool things that you can look at the larger picture with. Not just the trades and the signings, which they've certainly nailed those, look no further than Sam Darnold, but how this foundation was set a few years ago. So that's what Abe and I are talking about.
Well, people are already quietly whispering about John Schneider and the words Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Because, just to what you said, he has completely rebuilt that roster from the last Super Bowl appearance. These are 2 different teams that he's bringing to the Super Bowl, and then he has past experience before that. It's been a masterful job when you look at everything off the field and how he's navigated that. You also, speaking of off the field, have another interview this week with a friend of the show.
Jamie Munson, Simply Seattle. You know, we talk about just how great this is, obviously, but the business side of it, how much fun they're having. I love Simply Seattle from the standpoint of, like, anytime there's a big moment, it's like within 20 minutes, there's some t-shirt or hoodie or whatever it is out that's like, oh, wow, that's spot on, you know? And so we talk about that, where the ideas come from. Really fun conversation, as it always is with Jamie. And he has a cool stat regarding Simply Seattle and this week that I don't want to spoil, but you'll see it in that interview. And I want to say one more thing about John Schneider, to your point about Hall of Fame. Think about those 2 courageous moves. Trading the face of the franchise for the last decade, give or take at that point, Russell Wilson. Everybody thought he was crazy when they did that, and we're going to start Geno. And they made the playoffs next year. Everybody thought the Seahawks were going to be a mess this year because he had the courage to trade his starting quarterback and star wide receiver, and now it's turned into a Super Bowl. I mean, that's visionary stuff right there, man.
Yeah, and Geno going to Vegas and Pete Carroll going to Vegas, and we know what happened with them now with the number 1 overall pick. So that's all coming up later in the show. But first, what we always like to do every week inside the arena, talk about what's good, what's bad, off the ice, off the court, off the field of play. It's called Four Corners. Niko, what's good this week besides the Seahawks?
Well, you know, this could be a negative too, because we're going to miss the heck out of them on the air, but a positive. just from the standpoint of what he's meant to this town. Rick Rizzs announcing his retirement, that this 41st and 2026 baseball season will be his last, and they don't come any better than Rick Rizzs. You know this. Amazing broadcaster. Holy smokes! Goodbye baseball. I can't do it because I don't have the Rick voice, right? But but you know, as great as he is in the booth, and just that, the impact of a generation, multiple generations at this point of Mariner fans that have grown up listening to him. They know that voice if you heard it for half a second, right? But then you think about the work he's done in our community. I mean, he has really dedicated himself to helping this Seattle community. You know, you think about, I was just last weekend helping him in Issaquah, where he was doing Rick's Locker, where he raises money to give underserved kids brand new gear for the upcoming baseball season. I mean, the fact that he's thinking about that and wants to, he said, you know, he brought his original glove from the 50s. He's like, little Ricky Rizzs running out there. I want these kids to have the same chance I did. It also says that the movie The Sandlot is his story of his life. And I'm like, man, they just don't come any better than Rick Rizzs. He's just the highest quality of individual. I'm blessed to say he's become a close friend in these last few years. And so we're going to miss him. So it could be a negative, but you can't help but think about all the positivity, all the memories, and all the lives he's improved over the last 41 years. It's truly remarkable.
And when I use the term about somebody, the salt of the earth, I mean, he is the salt of the earth, no ego. When you talk to him about how great his call was, he's, shucks, thanks so much. And that's been Rick Rizzs through all these years. Yeah,
and it's just one of my favorite things, Chris, is, you know, every day when I'm live at the Mariner games in the summer and you're kind of just milling around in the warning track and foul territory waiting for Dan Wilson to take to the dugout for the daily update. Rick's always there.
Yeah.
You think 41 years or 40 years, whatever year it was for him, that maybe he would want to do something else as far as pregame, like maybe go get a lunch or nope. He just wants to watch the guys taking BP because he just loves baseball that much. And he's taking his notes. I'll tell you a quick story, Rick Rizzs. The 2022 baseball, the playoffs out in Houston.
Yeah.
We won't talk about what happened there, but it was several hours before first pitch. And I see Rick in the Houston Astros cafeteria at Minute Maid Park, wherever it is now. And he's just sitting there filling out his scorebook because he's Rick. And I'm just going to figure I'd leave him his distance. I'm not going to buck a guy while he's prepping for a playoff game in the first, ALDS we had seen in 21 years at that point. And so I'm eating my lunch at a table over, and he looks up and he's like, come here. He waves me over to go sit with him. So I'm like the popular kid at school wants me to sit at his table. So I run over, and he sat me down and he just said, Niko, I want you to just listen. I'm like, so what? He's like, just listen. I'm like, okay. So we sat there for a minute and nobody said anything. So what's going on? But then because Rick was there, all these legends start coming in, baseball legends that were just in town because it was the playoffs, whether they're Astros people. I think Craig Biggio was one of the guys. And all these baseball legends are coming over because they just wanted to hear Rick tell stories. And then they were talking shop. And at one point, about 10 minutes in, he kind of looked at me as if like, this is what I meant. And how cool it was that he wanted to include me in that, right? That he wanted me to just hear those stories. Now, I don't have any MLB stories like that, right? And especially at that point, but that's the kind of individual he wants. He wants to share the wealth. He wants to help anybody he possibly can.
Well, and I've been around long enough to hear Rick do other sports too. Like people forget he did Apple Cups and other sporting events here locally, but it is such an art form when you think about calling play-by-play in baseball, 162 plus games out of the year. I mean, you are the narrator for the summer. Yeah. You are the guy who's talking in the background for people as they're having a picnic or a barbecue in their backyard. Those summer memories, and to do it for hours on end, and a pregame show and a postgame show. There are few that can do it and have been as skilled as Rick Rizzs has done it over the years.
Yeah, it's we could spend a whole show with him. And I suspect at some point this summer we will, because he's so gracious. He already went on our sister podcast, Hard Turn, and opened up about some real life stuff he's dealt with, certainly. And that was a powerful show. But yeah, it's we're going to miss Ricky Rizzs, no question about it. But we're going to enjoy the heck out of this last year. And wouldn't it be something if they won it for Ricky? Finally got to the series.
That would be something.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll say what else is good this week. And our friends at the Seattle Sports Commission are very happy to talk about this, and that's the U.S. women's soccer teams coming back to Lumen Field for the first time in close to a decade. There is a date on the calendar, April 14th against Japan. And what's interesting here, too, as well, is they're going to be playing on natural grass at Lumen Field as the stadium gets converted for the World Cup. One thing that we haven't really touched on this show is the Sounders are going to play in CONCACAF in Spokane in the round of 16 of that tournament at One Spokane Stadium because of this whole changeover to natural grass at Lumen Field. And so we'll be able to see that firsthand with that U.S. women's soccer game on the 14th of April.
Chris, I don't know. It's shaping up to be a pretty eventful year in Seattle sports, isn't it?
In more ways than one. Well, what don't you like this week?
Yeah, listen, I hate to criticize officials because we have the benefit of like 35 replays. They have to make a call in that moment. And it's a difficult job. And certainly, I feel like when you criticize a professional official, it kind of trickles down to the point where we've had shortages for youth sport. Now, that's primarily based on parents that are, way over what they should be doing. But I guess what I'm trying to say is those parents sometimes feel emboldened because they're on social media seeing us criticize, not us, but people criticize the NFL refs and stuff. But that said, I feel like there's been no consistency in these playoffs. I hope it's, in theory, the Super Bowl, you have your best crew, and hopefully that's worked out. But I think that one of the things I'd watch for is the lack of consistency. We've seen so many, well, wait, is it a catch? Is it not a catch? And some of these refs will go on social media, like the former referees, and like, oh, well, this is clear as day. Like, well, no, it doesn't. To your average fan, it doesn't look clear as day. We're not in the same classrooms, but even the Reek Woolen play, the taunting one, Ellis and Reek, got to know a little bit better in that situation. I love that guy. He's a great person. But at the same time, I'm going to tell you, Chris, I was watching this all game, and there were far worse things than when Reek did that were not called. So if you're a Reek, you're like, well, they're letting us go because the NFC Championship. Now maybe you have a little more awareness, but at the same time, like, I never thought in a million years. And in that moment when they threw the touchdown the very next play, it felt like that could have shifted the whole game.
Yes, it did.
And imagine if you lost the game or the game was shifted because they suddenly at that point, after like 50 minutes of jawing and saying some pretty awful things to each other, they're going to call that one. The official explanation from the pool reporter was that, like, well, we told him to stop and then he didn't. He went back over. Like, well, I'm pretty sure I saw that about 5 at least times earlier in the game. So, hey, let's just get some more consistency. They have a hard job, no question. Let's get some more consistency. And hopefully the best crew that they have is at the Super Bowl.
In a strange way, it also helped the Seahawks, I think, near the end of the game, the idea that Cooper Kupp stretched out for that first down.
Right.
We saw Sean McVay use a timeout to allow for his coaches upstairs to tell him whether to challenge it. And then that became a factor. And I think down the stretch, it also was a factor for McVay not going for the field goal when he's down 4. Think about if they got the ball back with 20 seconds left down 1, that changes the entire dynamic of the game. So a few of those calls actually helped the Seahawks as well.
No question.
One thing I'll say that's negative this week, and it relates to one of the famous Niko rants on Inside the Arena. We just saw this week Darian Mensah, the quarterback at Duke.
A rant.
So he signed a 2-year NIL deal with Duke. Great university, right? When he this is a great fit, and you're getting some money out of it. Well, then here, not long after the situation with Devon Williams at UW, said he wanted out of that 2-year deal to go to Miami. And now it sounds like Duke has resolved this situation and allowed him to get out of that contract early. We're talking about very similar circumstances with Devon Williams. And yes, he is going to go to likely Miami. Miami likely paid the rest of that contract off to get him. There was a question with Damon, too, if he was trying to go to Miami. So it sounds like Miami was playing the poaching game between Duke, UW, LSU, perhaps as well. That is just a crazy town. And I think we saw at Clemson this week with Dallas Sweeney going off, holding a press conference to do a minute-by-minute, hour-by-hour breakdown of LSU trying to poach his player.
Oh, it was Ole Miss.
Ole Miss, sorry.
Yeah,
Ole Miss trying to poach his player.
That was entertainment.
Ole Miss got poached by LSU. See, it's all crazy.
Well, that was entertaining, because that, at least if Dabo's account is actually accurate, I mean, that was blatant tampering. The kids in class and getting texts like, here's your with a picture for $1 million check.
Yeah.
Like, you imagine if I said that scenario to you, say 7 years ago, you're like, well, they're going to get like the death penalty.
Right.
You can't do that. Money but it goes to the same point we've made for weeks, for months, for even years, as far as we've gone on ITA, that you've got to have some sort of commissioner regulating body that can make this not the Wild West. This doesn't even have to be the haves and have been. It's not even that. I mean, we're talking about good programs poaching good programs. It's just there's no regulation, and it's like, oh, just get as much money as you can. Well, wait a minute, there's legal contracts here. I wish Duke stood their ground. Not that I don't want the kid to do what he wants, but because I think UW, going to DeMono, like, hey, you signed this deal, like, and making it work.
Yeah.
I think that could have set a precedent, but now I think the precedent part of that's kind of unraveled a bit by this Duke and Miami situation.
Yeah. We've got a lot more to get to in this show. Let's just quickly do it to
Green.
do it. Green. I almost went for the purple. Supersonic Minute as we continue to update you on the potential return of the NBA to Seattle. Not a lot to report this week. We talked last week about Adam Silver in Europe and potentially finalizing a European league. That looks like it will be put together soon. That could have an impact on the potential return of the NBA to Seattle and expansion fees. But there has not been a lot to report here in the last week as we continue to follow that bouncing ball.
Yeah, and I think 2026 will be some news on that, and that's actually one thing that Jamie Munson and I talk about. There's your segue.
Nice.
And I think that, because we know Jamie, he
Yeah.
wants that to happen. But, we talked about these big events. We talked about the catchphrase with these big events. What a stretch it's been in Seattle sports with the Mariners, now the Seahawks, and of course you have big things coming up later this year. We talk about that, the business of capturing the moment, and it's lucrative, but at the same time, it's like, it's really being a part of the fabric of Seattle sports, which I would say, no question, Simply Seattle has done. The full interview with Jamie Munson coming up right after this.
Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel, Seattle's closest sportsbook, is your place for a true in-game betting experience. Download the Snoqualmie Casino Sportsbook app to get in on the action while watching your favorite games at Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel. Details at snowcasino.com. Seattle's closest sportsbook, Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel.
Well, Jamie, let's just start because we know you are the biggest Seattle fan through and through. And at the same time, it's obviously, great for business, but crazy for business. I mean, so I just want to start with, what's the emotion when Puka Nakua's inbounds, Seahawks run on the field,
Oh my
and they're
goodness.
going to the Super Bowl?
What a moment. My daughter took a picture of me a couple of minutes before that. I crouched down. She calls it the stress crouch, right? You're like, where's this game going? What's going to happen? And what an incredible moment, right? Seahawks going back to the Super Bowl. So fun. In fact, I got to put on a different hat because we are conference champions, right? Super Bowl bound. So exciting. And we're thrilled, right? We're fans first. It's obviously great for business, but as fans, diehard Seahawks fans, this is so exciting.
Yeah, and there's something about this team. It's every team, every championship team has a different identity. Legion of Boom with its own thing, right? This is a team that's like the dark side defense and all that, but I use this word when I've told people about it. They're like, it's almost like out of love. Like, they want to bail each other out. They love their teammates. Like, the defense wants to turn the ball over because they want to help the offense, so to speak. And that's not to say Legion of Boom wasn't that way. But how do you feel when you see the identity of this team and things like that?
Oh, it's so incredible. They got each other's backs all the time. I feel like the narrative so much this year has been Sam Darnold. Can he do it? Can he do it? Can he do it? And every week the guys are standing up for him and saying, he's our guy. He can do it. And he showed that on Sunday. And so the defense, like, they had an okay game, maybe not the best game ever, but Sam shows up with a near perfect game. And they're a team, they're a community, they're a brotherhood, and they got each other's backs. And it's just a blast to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see these guys. We all saw the celebration after. I mean, I was in it and everything, and you see the pure elation. And what's cool about it is, like, everybody across our state was having that same reaction. Like, this is something that just rallies the community, and the guys are cognizant of that. I mean, this is just something that sports brings everybody together. Everybody wants to celebrate this run.
Yep. I always say it's like the fans need the team needs the fans. We need businesses, all the bars and restaurants and retail shops like ours. Like, it's everyone coming together and kind of turning the city on its head, and it's electric and just a blast to be a part of.
What does it mean to you when you're out and about around town, whatever it is, and you see people wearing your creations for this achievement, like with the Simply See, like, there's such the cool designs you guys have come up with on this. Oh, I mean, that's got to be a cool thing, right? Because, like, we're all celebrating, we're all like on cloud nine, and then we're like, yeah, that was our thing, that's our idea, and like somebody's wearing it as like their source of pride with this football team.
Oh, it gives us so much pride as well. It's fun to see it, and I'm obnoxious. I go up to everyone and say, "Oh, hey, we got that. That's our design." And I usually give them a gift card or something to the site, and it's like, "Thanks for supporting us." And the Mariners run, the Seahawks run, the Sonic stuff we see. It's so cool to see it out in the world, and it means a lot, right? We're a small company. We're playing with the big boys, Fanatics, and these huge companies, and we buy from them, and we're partners with them. But we're also trying to do our own stuff that's unique and original. You can't find anywhere else.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Um, you led perfectly into the next question that there's a difference. Like, the national stuff is cool and there's nothing wrong with that. But there's
Yeah.
something to be said when it's local, and you can tell it's local because there's that just identity from a standpoint of like, I don't want to say inside joke, 'cause that's the wrong term, but it's like you have to be here to know what your
Yes.
shirt means in some ways. Does that make
Yes.
sense?
For sure. You roll out the Mike McDonald's quote, right? We do not care. And
Mm.
a couple hours later, that's on a shirt, and we're kind of getting it out to the fans. And people have that local identity. And the licensed stuff is amazing. And then we take our own non-licensed spin on it. And it's fun to just kind of capture those viral moments.
That was something I was going to ask later, but you just said it, capturing those viral moments. When,
Yeah.
when you started Simply, the idea that you could do something like that. When you started the business, was it part of the identity to say, okay, when there's a big moment, because you guys do this all the time and people love it. Whenever there's a big
Mhm.
moment, we're going to own it. We're going to make sure people can celebrate this. Doesn't matter the team, the sport, whatever. Was that part of the idea when you were starting this way back when?
Yeah, for sure. So my wife and I actually bought the company from a sleepy tourist shop 10 years ago. And this profound moment when we actually bought Simply Seattle was after the Seahawks lost that second Super Bowl in Arizona. We were there, we were down there. I was part of something else. We were making t-shirts, come back, and Simply Seattle guys, what's your plan? I was like, I don't know, but I'm broke and I got a family and I need a job. And so it's cool to come full circle of like, okay, we had so many ideas ready to roll when they lost that Super Bowl, and now we hope we get to implement some of these. But yeah, the success of the team is obviously a huge help, but we just try and show up every day as fans, as locals first. We love the city, we love the community, and it's fun to make gear that's different and people like and they want to get.
Yeah. I will tell you, not that you need my life story here. So, unfortunately, I'm not a native. My little boy is a native, but I'm never
Yeah.
leaving. So,
Yep.
because my wife and I started our honeymoon in Seattle, and
Yep.
we drove down the coast, and that was when we decided we wanted to live here forever. But we went to the old Simply Seattle back then, and then
Mhm.
when we came back on vacations, because we came back every year. So people at KOMO
Yeah.
would meet with me, and eventually, hopefully, which they did, hire me. And it's
That's
funny, we came
awesome.
back and we're like, wow, Simply Seattle's a lot different. Like, you know
I
what I'm
love
saying?
it.
And then we would
I love
stop
it.
and get gear and things like that. So
Yeah.
that's just a little sidebar to that. Um, and so when you get to something like this, you're a fan, obviously you're elated, but there's also the business aspect to it. Okay, how are we going to make the most of this for fans, but also from a
Yep.
business standpoint? So how do you balance that dynamic? What kind of goes into that?
Oh man, it's just chaos is probably the best word to describe it. We're always really prepared. We're fast. We like to move quick, and we know you got to capitalize on it. So as quick as we can make gear, as quick as we can get it from our vendors. We got a team over in the warehouse right now. We're shipping, orders and orders and orders, and it's just fun. Nice thing about the Super Bowl is you got a 2 week break. Mariners was a little rough, right? A couple days later, you start the next series, and here we go. So it gives us a little bit of time to get the fans their gear. Everyone will be ready for the Super Bowl, and we can't wait. It's going to be fun to watch them.
Can something like this, I know this is probably a silly question. Um, Chris does usually the business stuff, so apologize if it's a silly question on the business end. But the
Yeah,
idea
no
that,
worries.
yeah, you've got something like this. I mean, that can be an absolute game changer for the bottom line for the whole year, right?
For sure, for sure. We, just to be frank, we had our busiest day ever
Mm.
yesterday. So, just the day after fervor and fever, people are so excited, and busiest day we've had on our website, and it's just that's great for business and totally sets out the year on the right track.
Did I hear that the website was like, had too much traffic at one point?
I don't know if it actually crashed. I don't think
Okay.
so. That's the hope it doesn't crash. So,
Yeah, no kidding on that. So when this happens and it's like, okay, obviously everybody's Super Bowl fever, and some
mhm,
I'm sure some moments are obviously organic, like Mike's quote, like we all just wanted to run
for
through a wall
sure.
after that. So
Hmm.
is it like a meeting, or is it just something that comes to your head? Like how does this? Because these ideas you guys have, every big event doesn't matter if it's M's, Sonics,
Yeah.
Seahawks, whatever. like they just resonate so much. And obviously that's part of being a fabric of the community, but do they just come to you, or is it like meetings? How does this kind of work for you guys?
So we're preparing everything we can in advance, and then you're watching the game, you're listening for quotes, you're looking, what are people saying, what are people doing, is there a big catch, a big moment? And then it's either the teams meeting together and watching the game together, or it's a text string and we're going back and forth. And so unfortunately, these big events never happen Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, right? It's evenings, it's weekends. We're working around the clock in these moments, but what the heck, it's an incredible honor to be able to do that, right? When they're winning, you got to capitalize.
Yeah. Let's finish up by talking just a little bit about the game, because it almost feels poetic that it's the Patriots and it's,
Oh
you
my
know,
goodness.
right. It's ending this, because,
Mhm.
getting back to the stage after that heartbreak and playing those guys again. How special is that?
It's incredible. I was in a bar in Scottsdale selling T-shirts to thousands of Seahawks fans in 2014, or that Super Bowl last year. And the minute that interception was thrown, it was like just silence. People are throwing beer bottles and the crowd just dies. And we're hoping to, revenge that this year, right? But the story of beat the 49ers 3 times or twice, beat the Rams twice, and go back and face the Patriots, like it is poetic. You couldn't write a better script, and we can't wait to see the Seahawks go get it done.
Yeah, I will say that this team is so locked, and you see it. Like, it's just an extension of Mike. Like, they're more locked in than any team I've ever seen. But
Mhm.
when I asked Julian Love on the field about that, he gave me a look and he said redemption. And so,
Mm,
when you hear something like that, how cool is it to know that, like, players that obviously weren't here then, obviously, but they still know
yep.
the heartbreak and what it meant, and they want to deliver that for 12. They always want to deliver the Super Bowl, but they especially want to beat these guys. What does that mean to you that they're cognizant of that?
No, it's incredible, right? I was listening to the Bill Ringer, or Bill Simmons Ringer podcast, and he calls it one of the top 3 Super Bowl losses or heartbreaks of all time, and it is. And it doesn't matter if you're on the team or you're a little kid or you're an adult, like you remember that, and it's still painful, it still stings, and I think that's what makes Seattle so special. There's this legacy aspect to it, so. You got Cliff Averill and Jermaine Curse and all these guys that are still around the team, and they're helping out and supporting Marshawn, and these younger guys want to go, get that redemption for them. It's cool. It gives you goosebumps.
Absolutely. So we want to do this again in a couple of weeks. What do you say?
Oh, I'd love to. That'd be amazing.
Jamie, we appreciate your time, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Niko, as always. Appreciate you.
Friend of the show, Jamie Munson.
Friend of the show.
Oh,
We're
we
going to
love
start
Jamie.
printing out T-shirts, inside the arena T-shirts. He can do
Oh,
that
that would be
for
cool.
us.
That would be cool.
And then we'll give him one.
We'll give him one of the things he makes. Nice, Chris. I like that. And he is ready to go, as you heard him say, if this all goes the right way. Boy, oh boy. I think we all are ready to go for that. Speaking of the big one, the Super Bowl, we talked about earlier how the Seahawks, how did they go from 7-10 in 2021 to 14-3, I guess 16-3, and potentially 60 minutes away from winning the Super Bowl? It's a really special thing. The 2022 draft class, just to set this up, think about this. First round, Charles Cross. Big contract, starting left tackle. Second round, he had 2 picks. Kenneth Walker III, 1,000-yard rusher, game breaker in every sense of the word. Also, Boye Mafe, who's been a really solid contributor. He's there. He played since his rookie year. He's been a huge deal on the edge. Then you go to the third round, Abe Lucas. He's been your starting right tackle since day one. So the offensive line was set because of that draft. And remember, they didn't have a first rounder that year until they traded Russ, okay? Fourth rounder, Kobe Bryant, star safety. Fifth rounder, Reek Willen. He's been a starting corner, Pro Bowler since day one. And their 6th round pick is not here anymore, but the 7th rounder is Derek Young, who's been a special team stalwart ever since. So 7 of the 8 draft picks are guys that are still making a major impact. That's the foundation. And yeah, there's been huge additions along the way. Darnold, obviously the next year's draft, JSN Witherspoon, Ernest Jones, Leonard Williams. But that draft kind of set the foundation when you talk about 7 starters and major contributors. So talking to a member of the 2022 draft class, Abe Lucas. So you look at the 22 class, just when everybody's still here, not just still here, but playing huge roles for this team. It's kind of unheard of when you look around the NFL in that way, but you guys, I mean, this whole team's close. How special is it that this class has gone through a lot, gone through changes, and yet still here and bringing this team to heights we haven't seen in some time?
It's great. I mean, you got to give credit to Schneider, really. I mean, for doing the job that he did and bringing Saul and having faith in us. I'm appreciative of it. I mean, my 2022 class, it was just like a group of guys that just wanted to work and get better, and I think that's continued on the 23 class and the 24 class. leading up to now. So it's cool. It's a full little neat experience that everybody's contributing in a very big way.
Yeah, and you guys have gone through some changes here, that class specifically. How did that help maybe get you even closer, help with that connectedness that we see with this entire club today?
I mean, I just think that, everybody involved kind of like understood the business side of it. Like this is kind of just part of the deal when you have changes in this, and there will be other changes to come. Obviously, that's just kind of the nature of the business. So the way everybody handled things with, grace and maturity, signing on.
And we've seen the trajectory, right? Getting close. You made the playoffs your rookie year, but then 9 wins to 10 and now to week 20, which is a cool thing just to say. To see that growth in that way, how special has that been?
I mean, it's great. It's just a testament to, putting your head down and working hard. I mean, that's all you can do in this business, and just take advantage of the opportunity as much as you can.
Like you said, the whole team's close, but is there something special about that class? The idea that came in together, like maybe like the group you came in with, you always kind of maintain that like special bond, so to speak.
Oh yeah, I think so. I mean, if you look at like how many starters came out of that class, and even like my rookie year, just everybody that was contributing, whereas the offense, defense, and or special teams, so, but yeah, it was great. It was really cool.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll ask about this is just the idea that, I'll talk about the offensive line specifically, where you and Charles came in the same class. You're kind of bookending the line, which, again, we talk about growth. We've seen that unit grow as well. I mean, how cool is that for that room, how close you are to see how much it's grown as well in your time?
That's special. I mean, you only ever want to get better. And like I said, I think the guys on the team in general, but including the O-line, just want to get better, want to keep improving and keep working every day.
Yeah, how about that? The Archbishop Murphy alum, Everett native, former Washington State Cougar. When he pronounced all the Washington unique town names right when his teammates couldn't, I said, is that the Archbishop Murphy or WSU education? He said WSU all the way.
I'm sure he's taken more than one trip through Washtuckna.
I didn't, that was not on the quiz. It was Cleellum, was Wenatchee, Sequim, Chehalis. Forget what the other. Snoqualmie was one of the other ones.
Yeah. Well, if you're driving to Pullman, Washtuckna.
Yeah. No, you definitely do.
Who else probably knows how to say Washtuckna?
Who's that?
David Lee.
Oh, take us out.
You've been listening to Inside the Arena with Niko and Chris. Please subscribe on your favorite platform. Until next time.
Inside the Arena was presented by Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel, Seattle's closest sports book.